When Sophia found the messages proving he'd been unfaithful, something inside her finally went quiet. Months spent trying to save a marriage she'd been holding up alone, while he kept promising changes that never came. Now, facing the truth she'd been avoiding, Sophia has to choose: keep patching up the pieces, or finally let herself stop bleeding. And it's in that choice that her entire story shifts, in a way no one sees coming. Welcome to Lost Stories and Lyrics, the place where emotional stories will touch your heart. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Sophia Hayes, 40, woke up every day at 6:15 a.m. without ever needing an alarm. Her body just knew. The soft light slipping through the window of her small Portland townhouse signaled another calm morning, the kind that always made her believe her life was on the right track, stable, predictable, safe. She liked that sense of control. On her side of the bed, the nightstand always held the same three things. A book she was rereading for the 5th time, a mug full of colorful pens, and a photo of her and her husband, Daniel, taken on her 38th birthday, a wide smile, a lopsided cake, and the kind of embrace that seemed to promise, we're in this for the long run. Sophia believed that. Needed to believe it. At 40, she was known around town as the one who gets things done. She managed operations at a large bookstore downtown, organized, thoughtful, always ready to help a coworker drowning in deadlines, a confused customer, or some last-minute emergency. Her gift was creating order out of chaos, and without noticing, she had applied that same gift to her marriage. Sophia was always the one trying to make everything work. Always the one patching up the small silences, the small distances, the small hurts. She called that love. The house reflected who she was: neatly lined up mugs, towels folded the same way, scented candles in the living room, books stacked carefully, as if every corner carried her attempt to build a home where love could grow quietly, peacefully. One Tuesday morning, while she stirred sugar into her coffee, Daniel rushed downstairs, adjusting his collar, always in a hurry. "Morning," she said, smiling. "Morning," he muttered, distracted, grabbing a sip of coffee without even looking at her. He was almost out the door when she asked, "Will you be home early today? I thought maybe we could go out for dinner." "Today's tough, too much going on," he said, pulling on his jacket. "We'll figure it out another day." Another day. A day that never seemed to come. Sophia swallowed the disappointment as naturally as she drank her coffee. She'd always been good at swallowing feelings before they spilled. But beneath the surface, something was off. She could feel it, a subtle discomfort, like running your hand across smooth wood and catching on a tiny splinter. Small, but impossible to ignore. Still, she kept going. Work, home, to-do lists, small plans. And the love she insisted on keeping alive, even when it felt like she was the only one tending the embers. What Sophia wanted, what she always wanted, was simple. To be loved with the same devotion she offered. Nothing grand, nothing cinematic. Just presence. Just honesty. And deep down, she believed Daniel wanted the same. He was just going through a rough patch. At least, that's what she told herself. The first crack didn't come with shouting, a fight, or some dramatic moment. It came quietly. It started on an ordinary night. Daniel left to take care of some work stuff and promised he'd be home before 9. 9 became 10. Then 11. Then midnight. No answers. No texts. At 12:47 a.m., the kitchen clock ticked softly when the door finally opened. Daniel stepped in quickly, carrying a scent that wasn't his, a floral, sugary perfume, unmistakably not hers. Sophia's heart froze. "Where were you?" she asked, trying to sound calm, though her voice broke halfway. He hesitated, only for a second, but that second was enough to hurt. Went out with some people from work, it ran late. Nothing big. Nothing big. It was always nothing big. She wanted to believe him. Desperately. But something in his face, in the way he avoided her eyes, told another story. That night, Sophia lay awake staring at the ceiling, feeling her organized, stable, predictable life slipping through her fingers. In the days that followed, little signs began to appear. Daniel smiling at his phone. Deleted messages. Showers that lasted too long. A new shirt she didn't remember buying. And an emotional distance so thick she could almost touch it, as if he was always somewhere else, even when sitting right beside her. Sophia tried to talk. He changed the subject. Said she was overthinking. Said he was tired. Said anything, except the truth. And every time she tried to bridge the gap grew wider. One night, while grabbing his jacket to wash it, Daniel's phone buzzed in the pocket. The screen lit up. A notification. A name she didn't recognize. And one short, devastating message. Still thinking about last night, call me when you can. It hit her like a blow she never saw coming. The shock was cold, paralyzing. Her heart didn't even ache right away. It went numb, as if trying to shield itself. She waited for Daniel to get home. Waited for an explanation. Waited for honesty. He denied. Then twisted. Then minimized. It was just a misunderstanding. It means nothing. You're blowing this out of proportion. That sentence landed like a crushing weight. Because deep down, she realized. This wasn't the first time he had made her question her own reality. And suddenly the pieces fell into place. The absences, the excuses, the silences, the half-promises, the somedays that never came. The sense of collapse was overwhelming. It felt like someone had pulled the ground out from under her. In the days that followed, Sophia felt like a house hit by a storm. Still standing, but wrecked on the inside. She went through the motions, her body moving through routine on autopilot. Work, meetings, emails, all through a thick mental fog. People at work noticed, of course. Her eyes had lost their usual spark. Her smile looked like something she'd pinned on. But no one knew what to say, and she didn't know how to ask for help. Every night alone on the couch was worse than the last. The TV low, the kitchen lights soft, the house unbearably quiet, all echoing the same question. How could he? The betrayal, confirmed or not, shattered more than the marriage. It cracked something deeper, her trust in herself. She began questioning everything. Was she not enough? Did she fail as a wife? Had she ruined things without realizing it? Did she deserve a love this broken? And maybe the worst of all, had he ever truly loved her? Sophia tried to confront him. Tried to talk. Tried to reach for honesty. But every attempt hit another wall. You're too sensitive. You're imagining things. I'm not having this conversation again. Let's just move on. Move on. With an open wound. With the blame placed on her. In a story where she'd always been the only one trying to fix what he tore apart. That was when Sophia felt rock bottom for the first time. Because it wasn't just the betrayal. It was looking in the mirror and not recognizing the woman staring back. The strong, organized, confident woman, gone. In her place was someone smaller, exhausted, broken, trying to slap Band-Aids over deep cuts made by a man who claimed to love her. And in the silence of that fall, something inside her began to shift. Still faint. Still fragile. But real. Her rebirth would start there. But for now, Sophia could only feel the pain. And the pain was enough to drown out any hope. For weeks, Sophia moved through life like she was carrying an entire house on her back. The questions no one else could see were the ones weighing her down the most. How did I end up here? How did I not notice? Why wasn't I enough? She walked through her new apartment, still cluttered with boxes, as if every step landed on a minefield made of memories. Every object reminded her of the life she thought she had, the mugs they bought together in Boston, the photos from their trip to Seattle, the throw blanket he claimed he loved because it smelled like home. It all felt poisoned now, tainted by lies. But something shifted the morning she found an old notebook inside one of the boxes, from when she was 24. The cover was bent, but the title written in blue marker was still readable, Things I Promised to Myself. She opened it. The handwriting was the same, but the spirit belonged to someone else, a version of her who believed in courage, in boundaries, in self-respect. I'll never beg to be seen. I won't stay where I'm not respected. I won't accept crumbs when I want the whole feast. She almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was brutally ironic. She'd done exactly that for years, shrinking her voice to fit inside his distraction, clinging to vague promises, accepting apologies that healed absolutely nothing. And yet, warmth flickered in her chest. Not anger. Recognition. That woman still existed somewhere inside her, buried under the wreckage, but alive. And then came the spark. It didn't happen like in the movies, no grand moment. It was simple. She looked at herself in the mirror. Not hunting for flaws, but searching for the pieces she'd lost. The faint lines at the corners of her eyes told stories. The tight jaw showed strength. The exhaustion hinted at survival, not weakness. And for the first time since the betrayal, a quiet lightning bolt crossed her mind. I'm still here. That was the beginning. Rebuilding started small, so small it was almost invisible. Sophia made her coffee the way she liked it. Played the old playlist she always saved for later because he thought it was too loud. Opened the windows and let Portland's cold air fill the living room, breathing like someone relearning how to take up space. But healing isn't a straight line. One morning, she couldn't even get out of bed. Another, she cried in the middle of the grocery store after seeing his favorite cereal. Some days she believed in the future, others, she doubted her ability to move forward at all. But even on the worst days, something had changed. She didn't blame herself for feeling. And that was new. Back at the independent bookstore where she'd worked for years, Sophia found herself surrounded by stories, bindings, customers wandering through fiction and memoirs. And there, strangely, she began finding pieces of herself again. Some customers returned just to ask what she'd recommend that day. An elderly woman took her hand and said, "You talk about books in such a gentle way. It makes people believe they can save lives." It was the first time Sophia smiled in weeks without feeling the burn behind her eyes. And then came the small victories. A teenage girl thanked her, teary-eyed, for a book recommendation that helped her through her anxiety. A coworker asked for her help reorganizing an entire section, saying he trusted her sensitive eye. A tourist photographed the window display she created and said, "This place has soul." Sophia let the compliments in. Not like shattered mirrors, but like open windows. Still, the falls kept coming. One night, sorting through divorce papers, she saw Daniel's signature and her whole body shook. The pain hit like a delayed wave, sharp and deep. She almost texted him. Almost. But stopped. She remembered the blue notebook. And the promises she'd made to herself. I won't accept crumbs. Progress and setbacks began to coexist. And slowly, Sophia realized healing isn't about becoming who you used to be, it's about discovering who you still can be. The real test came unexpectedly, not with Daniel showing up, but with something far more subtle, far more dangerous, an emotional relapse disguised as tenderness. It was a rainy afternoon in Portland, the bookstore smelling like damp paper and fresh coffee. The place was nearly empty when a couple walked in, quietly debating which book to buy for their anniversary. Sophia watched from a distance. They held hands. They spoke softly, like people who knew each other deeply. They laughed at little things. He looked at her like she was his whole world. Something inside Sophia crumbled, not out of jealousy, but memory. It felt like a ghost brushing her shoulder. She remembered who she used to be. And everything she never received. Once the couple thanked her and left, Sophia slipped into the stockroom to breathe. But her breath caught. Her vision blurred. The pain hit hard. Standing there between boxes and harsh fluorescent lights, the truth dropped like lead. She still loved the idea of what she thought she had with Daniel. Not the man himself, the ghost she created. That was the test. The biggest one. Not because it involved her ex, but because it involved her. The voice that echoed inside her wasn't Daniel's. It was hers, years ago, writing in that blue notebook. I promise not to lose myself for anyone. Sophia braced her hands on the counter, took a long breath, and let the tears come, not the desperate ones from the betrayal, but tears of release, of clarity. The question rose on its own. Who do I want to be now? And in that moment, even without an answer, she felt something new take shape inside her. A quiet solidity, steady and grown, that didn't beg, didn't shrink, didn't apologize for existing. Life seemed to hold her still in that second, as if saying, now it's your move. Whatever came next, how she'd handle this truth, this pain, this turning point, would prove, once and for all, that Sophia was no longer the woman who shattered for someone incapable of protecting her heart. This was the climax. And she was ready to face it. Sophia found herself walking along the riverfront again, clutching her coat the way someone holds on to a fragile memory. She wasn't trying to erase what had happened, she was searching for a new meaning in what remained. Little by little, she learned that a city could be both the same and completely different at once, the same streets, just new ways of seeing them. In the months after the storm, she built small rituals that brought order back to the chaos. She woke up early, drank her coffee while watching the rain, jotted down thoughts in a simple notebook. She went back to running by the lakeside trail, felt the cold air fill her lungs, and realized her body was responding to life again. When the rain came heavy, she stood by the window, not to drown in memories, but to listen to how the sound washed the world clean. Work at the bookstore felt lighter. She didn't hide her tired days, but she also started accepting invitations she used to decline, a local author talk, lunch with her sister, a walk with friends. Sophia helped organize a neighborhood book club where people arrived shy and left chatting, trading stories. Watching those connections form made her realize her own pain was making space for other lives, and that she could welcome people in without carrying everything alone. Therapy stayed part of her routine. She learned to name feelings without blaming herself, to understand that the anger she felt was fair and that the guilt she'd been handed didn't belong to her. In simple, honest sessions, she discovered that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting, it was about freeing herself from the weight of resentment. And that insight planted the seed for the way she allowed herself to relate going forward. There were hard nights. Sometimes she woke up with her chest tight, remembering empty tables, whispered promises, and the phone call that changed everything. She remembered all the time she spent fixing things no one else acknowledged were broken. On days like that, she wrote letters she never sent, some sharp, some soft, and then burned the drafts like a ritual of letting go. Those small acts helped her face the moments when longing felt microscopic and enormous at the same time. When she was invited to speak at the book club she now helped run, she hesitated, and said yes. She stepped onto the small community stage in front of a modest audience of neighbors and curious readers. She talked about women learning to reassemble themselves. No theatrics. She shared lines from books that had helped her, memories that strengthened her, and spoke honestly about the days when she thought she'd never find a way out. The applause was gentle but real. Afterward, a young woman hugged her and said her words made her feel less alone. Sophia felt a bridge form between who she had been and who was emerging, and realized her story was now helping other stories stay afloat. Starting over also brought lighter encounters, conversations that promised nothing, and sometimes a smile that warmed her chest. She met new people, not searching for replacements, just presence. She learned to tell the difference between company and need, affection and dependence. On the nights when the past knocked at her door, she steadied herself with her breath and her routine. Every small step mattered. She answered a call without hanging up halfway through, accepted an invitation without inventing an excuse, left the house on a gray Sunday just to drink a quiet cup of coffee and feel part of the city. Her biggest test came when Daniel, her ex-husband, reappeared indirectly, a mutual friend's comment, his name mentioned in a casual bookstore conversation. His name slipped through like it meant nothing, but she remembered how that same name once unraveled her balance. Now, though, the effect was different. Hearing it brought back a clear memory, but it didn't freeze her. She felt sadness, yes, anger and exhaustion too. But instead of the old desperation, there was a steady acceptance. He was part of her story, not the end of it. When someone close asked if she ever felt the urge to confront him, she answered calmly that she wasn't looking for confrontation. Not because she was afraid, but because she wasn't willing to give that wound more space than it had already taken. Choosing not to feed the conflict was an act of strength. She saved her energy for what mattered, her peace, and the people around her who truly needed her. Transformation didn't happen all at once. It came in tides. Some mornings she woke up light, fully present, others brought waves of nostalgia. But with every cycle, the undertow lasted a little less. Sophia learned that healing was daily work, not a single event. She began leading small workshops on emotional recovery at the bookstore, gatherings where women and men shared wounds and strategies for self-care. The community responded with warmth. People who had attended her early sessions returned months later to thank her. Seeing her journey ripple into the lives of others strengthened her sense of purpose. She also found concrete ways to honor herself. She redecorated her apartment with plants and photos she chose, not for anyone else's taste, but as reminders of her autonomy. She invested in courses she'd always wanted to take, learned basic photography to capture the things she found beautiful, and started taking short weekend trips to nearby towns. Each experience reminded her that the world still offered possibilities, and that she was free to accept them without guilt. Her family, who had watched quietly for months, approached her with more gentleness. Her sister, who once urged her to just move on, began listening more carefully. Friends who had pulled back because they didn't know how to help returned with simple gestures, dinner, a quick check-in message, small visits. Sophia learned to accept help without feeling like she was losing independence. She realized that asking for support was also a form of courage. At the bookstore, a new display featured titles she curated, books on resilience, on women who rebuilt their lives, on the art of living. Customers began seeking her recommendations, looking specifically for her selections. The editorial project she had always dreamed of, an anthology of stories from people who endured loss and rebuilt themselves, finally took shape. She poured herself into the curation, transforming her pain into narrative and witness. One summer, she was invited to speak at a literary fair in Portland. She stepped onto the stage to talk about love, betrayal, and recovery, and felt the audience listening with dense attention. Afterward, two women approached to say her talk made them remember parts of themselves they'd buried, and that for the first time, they felt ready to ask for help. She cried quietly, but in a clean, relieved way, as if something had finally come full circle. Sophia's greatest victory wasn't defeating Daniel. He'd never been the center of the battle, but reclaiming her right to be whole without depending on anyone else's validation. She relearned boundaries, learned to say no when something harmed her dignity, and chose herself without apology. The change showed up in her presence: more friends, more projects, relationships rooted in truth, laughter that didn't hide fear. In the end, she sat one afternoon in the park, watching the light shift over the lake. She opened her notebook and wrote a simple sentence: "I stayed with myself." It wasn't triumphant, it was steady. She knew life would keep bringing highs and lows, but she also knew how to hold herself when the waves came. Sophia had rebuilt a kind of self-love that didn't need to prove anything to anyone. And when people asked how she did it, she'd smile and say, "One day at a time." It wasn't modest, it was honest. Portland, with its rain and its little cafes, became the place where she learned how to exist again. There, in the mist and the stories she helped nurture, Sophia stopped being something to fix and became the author of her own life. Enjoyed the video? Smash that like button and subscribe for more awesome stories. I'll be waiting for you in the next story.